Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast.
I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs. As hosts of the Imperfect Us podcast, we share relatable stories that celebrate we are all perfectly imperfect humans, leading perfectly imperfect lives. We discover practical and evidence-based strategies that draw on the science of wellbeing and positive psychology that help us to uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We acknowledge the Wadawurrung and the Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to other First Nations people who are here with us today. So, let's get started.
Today, we are speaking with Roz Rimes. Roz has been a passionate canine-assisted educator and coach for over 10 years. Having witnessed firsthand the wellbeing benefits of therapy dog interactions with people, Roz's belief in the efficacy of canine-assisted education has fueled a commitment to enhance people's wellbeing outcomes through canine-assisted education and canine-assisted coaching. Roz has expertise across a diverse range of settings and has been enhancing student wellbeing with her highly trained therapy wellbeing dogs since 2018 at the Student Village at the University of Melbourne. Roz is a contributor to the 2024 Dogs in Schools Pedagogy and Practice for Happy, Healthy and Humane Interventions book, published by Routledge. Roz holds a Master's of Education Policy, a Master of Applied Positive Psychology, and Advanced Animal Assisted Therapy qualifications. We are really looking forward to learning more from Roz today. So let's dive in. Roz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Leanne and Lisa. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I've known you for quite some time through the University of Melbourne MAP, so it's a great joy.
We're just so excited to be talking with you and really diving into a little bit more about your dogs and all of the amazing work that you're doing.
And of course, we met Flash and Rafa, your beautiful dogs, during our studies at the University of Melbourne, and you know, have really come to love and know the wonderful work that you do. And we're so excited to be sharing this with our listeners today. We are curious to understand, just what canine-assisted therapy is.
Thank you. That's a great question, Leanne. And what's interesting really is I'd like to give you some context. So I'd like to kind of talk about, who I am and what I do and what canine-assisted therapy is, what canine-assisted education is, and separately canine-assisted coaching. And it's the canine-assisted therapy that underpins the other two things. And I've used my MAP, my positive psychology studies, to really, turbocharge what I do with the dogs to develop a canine-assisted education and coaching approach. So what I'd like to say just briefly is to give you a definition of just like a working definition of canine-assisted therapy, okay, which comes under the broad term of animal-assisted therapy. So it's an alternative or complementary type of therapy that includes the use of dogs in a treatment. The goal of this canine-assisted intervention is to improve a patient's social, emotional, or cognitive functioning. So studies have documented some positive effects of the therapy on subjective self-rating scales and on objective physiological measures such as blood pressure and hormone levels.
Yeah.
So the training that we've done in the animal-assisted therapy space, mainly canine-assisted therapy, enables us to have the knowledge and skills when we add it to positive psychology and wellbeing science to really work in a, let's say, a trauma-informed positive education space. So I'll just go now to, and it's a little bit wordy, but it's worth taking the time to dive into it. So canine-assisted education is a goal-oriented, planned and structured intervention where educational professionals use dogs to help students achieve academic goals, develop social skills and improve thinking abilities. These activities are planned and led by qualified educators, and that's really important that we have qualified educators, can be used for groups or individuals, and are also used for therapeutic purposes. The progress of students is tracked and recorded. Educators must understand canine behaviour and welfare to ensure the dog's well-being during these sessions. So that's my working definition based on the Ohio information. Ohio's a peak body in this phase. So then we move to canine-assisted coaching, a little bit different. It's a goal-oriented, strengths-based approach, so strengths-based approach where trained professionals, again, you're working with a trained professional, not a volunteer, use dogs to help people improve their well-being by growing personally, understanding group dynamics, as well as enhancing social and emotional skills and well-being literacy. And that's new. That's the beautiful well-being literacy work coming out of the University of Melbourne with Jackie Francis and Lisa Baker in particular. Educated in both their field and in understanding canine behaviour and well-being, canine-assisted coaches prepare and track the sessions carefully to support coachees or students to reach their goals. So essentially the key differences are that CAE, canine-assisted education, is about achieving academic goals, whereas canine-assisted coaching is a strengths-based approach to help people improve their well-being and to thrive.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I hadn't realised that it had gone into coaching now as well. And I think that that's such a beautiful field to really help people, establish their goals that they're really wanting to do, or even opening it up to the potential of what that might be.
Yeah. And the big thing that I see is we all know there's sadly a little stigma around mental ill health and therapy, and people and even students, I've seen it many times, being a little bit reluctant to be seen with the therapy dog. But imagine this. Imagine if you're on the school oval with the coach and the coaching dog, the well-being dog, helping you to go from good to great. And it can be a whole school approach, and it can be a treat rather than therapy. And I'd just like to underline a little bit more about wellbeing literacy for your listeners.
Yes.
Okay. So wellbeing literacy, the term was coined by our revered Professor Lindsay Oates in 2017.
Super legend. We'll just shout out there to you, Lindsay.
Yep. And wellbeing literacy is defined as the intentional use of wellbeing, relevant vocabulary, knowledge and language skills to maintain and improve the wellbeing of oneself, others and the world. And I'm particularly excited about the habit of intentionally using language to maintain or improve wellbeing of self and others, i.e. dogs. And as expressed to me by wellbeing literacy researcher Lisa Baker, it's not an accident, it's a literacy. The work you do with the dogs is very much intentional for wellbeing. It's not just a fun activity.
Yeah, and I think, before I met you, Flash and Rafa, I just thought, the dog would come along and you'd give him a pat and you'd spend a bit of time. I had no idea or understanding the complex of the impact and the complex approaches that sit behind it that really help you. I like where you say that it helps them the person go from good to great.
Yes. And it thrills me. And we're doing some work with Melbourne Indigenous Transition School, which is at nested within the Richmond Football Club, which is amazing because you see the wonderful female and male players on the field, literally coaching outside the classroom window. And what I love about that is these are elite athletes, and it's about coaching we're not doing animal-assisted therapy or canine-assisted therapy with the students. We are doing canine-assisted coaching. And my husband's a basketball coach. Our sons play basketball. So I bring in a lot of the coaching language and excitement and energy and zest. Hello, that's why I have a social enterprise called Live with Zest. It might be one of my top strengths. So there's a lot in it, and a lot of it's landing. It's really working, and I'm so excited about that.
Oh, and it sounds so wonderful. I want to grab them now and go and have a session myself.
And we know, you could ask the question, why dogs? And this is some of Professor Brian Hare's work from Duke University. Dogs, we know, can read our facial expressions. They read our body language. They smell with their potent noses. They smell cortisol. They can sense, and our energy, is it high, is it low? They can help us bring our energy up. They can help us self-regulate, or they co-regulate with us. And it's very exciting, very exciting.
It is amazing to know and understand the difference that they can intelligently make, without perhaps us even realising.
Yeah, and the big new piece is dog wellbeing, and I was lucky enough to be invited to speak at the 2024 Animal Assisted Services Conference in
wonderful.
in February. And a big piece of my presentation was on dog wellbeing, and that's an even bigger reason why we need to read dog facial expressions and dog body language. And the reason I was asked to speak was because I've in a Routledge publication, Dogs in Schools, and research. It all came about quite. It was via serendipity, really. Dr. Helen Lewis, a researcher from Wales, she put out a call on Facebook and said, can anyone help me distribute my survey link on Dogs in Schools? So I helped her out. Fast forward, she was on my Australian Education Union webinar for Dogs in Schools, and then she asked me to be in the book. Who knew?
Oh, I saw that beautiful wording that was in there. I had a good read of it myself.
Yes. And so what we need to do if we're going to bring dogs into schools, and my feeling is a visiting dog that comes into the school and then goes out rather than stays at the school all the time, which might be known as a facility dog. We really need to look after the dog's well-being, because it can work beautifully if it's well designed, if it's well monitored, but also it can be very stressful on a dog if you're, let's face it, looking after stressful, dysregulated teachers or students, teachers, principals, and dare I say parents. So it's very doable, and that's what I do. I coach schools. I'm going to a school in another state in a couple of weeks to help them. What does it look like? What is best practice? How can we help this work,
I'm actually really pleased that that's happening. We've had some in our school where they just come in, and it seems to be that it's almost like the well-being of the dogs perhaps aren't being monitored a little bit or enough, I would guess. So making sure that their wellbeing is, at the forefront is really important, because the work they do for students and teachers and so forth, that ripple effect is really it's massive. But without that dog, it's like, I guess, ourselves, that self-care that we need to have. You can't show up if your wellbeing's, dipped down. So I love that.
Correctly. And you know what? We don't know what we don't know. And I have empathy for schools, and, they're trying it, and I applaud them for that. But, we've just got to think very carefully about it. And what I even do, and I've done this with Flash and Ruffer, and I'm thrilled to say that Flash has just retired at 14 years of age. He was a therapy dog and a wellbeing dog for 12 and a half years, which I think is amazing. And he's still trotting in the park, sleeps a little more, hears a little less these days. So he's a very happy camper. And he has been able to do that because we did a lot of work. We've worked in mental health at Royal Melbourne Hospital and different things. And I would take him to the off-lead park beforehand, bath, sleep, hospital visit, then off-lead park, sleep, bounce back. And we really need to, like with all our wellbeing knowledge and tools, prime the dogs so that, okay, we exercise, we rest, we work, And the language is really important. Again, we invite the dogs to work with us. We don't use the dogs. There's so much new terminology coming in. The dogs are not a co-therapist because, hello, they're not a therapist. Okay? They're not even an educator because we are the professionals. We are the professional educators. Okay? We invite them. It's all about choice. And Dr. Mia Cobb, in a newly appointed role at Melbourne Uni, which is so exciting, which is all about canine welfare, she spoke to me about agency. The dog's got to have a lot of agency. And so I've been lucky enough to do animal-assisted play therapy, where it's all about the dog's agency, with Reza Van Fleet, who spoke at the conference as well. How's this? She was the keynote speaker and I was speaking directly after her. No pressure. So how's this?
You would have bounced back, don't you worry.
So how's this? I wasn't taking Rafa to Brisbane for his wellbeing. So guess what? I have a Labradoodle puppet called Lucille, and I've had one puppet lesson. I'm not a ventriloquist. But anyway, it landed. We danced on stage to Pharrell Williams because I'm happy, and it landed. And she said it was very humorous, so I was pleased about that.
Oh, gorgeous.
But anyway, I digress a little. It's very important to look after the dog's well-being. It's very doable. We use our well-being tools to prime the dog before and after, and we educate the whole school about things like if the dog's on its mat or it's in its crate, we leave it alone. The dog's resting. The dog's not there full time. The dog only does small amounts of hours. This is some of best practice work from Animal Therapies Limited. I encourage people to go to that website and I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
So my presentation at the Animal Assisted Services Conference was about dog wellbeing. And what I emphasised is that we're using a trauma-informed positive education approach, which underpins our work. This is Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. This is Professor Lee Waters and Tom Brunzell's work on trauma-informed positive education. I know Tom was a previous guest, so I feel like I'm in good company here, so thank you very much. We use things like Linda Rowley's nature-based work, and I know she was a guest recently. So it's drawing together lots of wonderful things using the PERMA approach: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, achievement, health. And one of my big learnings, and interestingly, long story short, I used to work in the wine industry. I was lucky enough to work for Moet and Chandon.
Lucky you.
You pronounce the T, it's Moet et Chandon in California. And when we think of wine and food, it's easy to think about savouring, so the practice of savouring, different from mindfulness. So mindfulness, being in the present moment, non-judgmentally, being aware of the positive and the negative. Savouring, this is Bryant and Veroff's work, Seminal Text 2006. We are deliberately focusing on what brings us positive emotion. I use a lot of savouring with the dogs. I'm narrating. Notice the soft touch, the warmth, the heartbeat, the weight, and the weight on your legs, the weight on the chest as he cuddles into you, and how that makes us feel. There's a lot of neurobiological benefits behind this, particularly patting for between 5 and 24 minutes. It's called the oxytocin effect, where our cortisol's coming down, our heart rate's coming down, our dopamine's increasing, and our oxytocin is increasing. So it's not just between parent and child, it's between dog and human where there's some sort of attachment. And we're making sure that the dog is choosing to be with us. We're not making the dog sit beside us or sit on our legs. Okay, so I would encourage schools to think about how they can maximise interactions with the dog, but also pictures about the dog. I've got paintings. I create the lyrics to the 12 Dogs of Christmas. Okay,
yes, that was gorgeous.
How's this? I had one time 120 university college managers at a conference singing that in full voice, Lisa and Leanne.
Oh,
and
that's amazing.
And Flash and Rafa were down at the front, and they're sitting up thinking, oh, these people are singing to us. We're feeling really good about this. And it was pretty loud, but they were okay. And I'm motioning to move the lyrics up the page so everyone could see. And they thought I was saying, go louder, go louder.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah, I will say that was a career highlight. So that was, so what I'm saying, you could create a school song. I've had people paint beautiful pictures of, the dogs. I've had students willingly, draw on a whiteboard without any invitation from me to do so. People are drawn to do that. We play dog bingo at the University of Melbourne. We've been visiting the college since 2018. And the international students, they love it. They love it because the dogs look like teddy bears with heartbeats.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And I'm also very aware some people sadly have had unfortunate, unpleasant experiences with dogs, and that's very valid. They might have had an aggressive dog. They might have had a dog bite. Their parents might say to them, I'm afraid of dogs. And I'm very sensitive to introducing the dogs in a very respectful, sensitive way. And I've had teenagers squealing 1 minute. I get the teachers to ask the teenagers to sit in a circle in the library, and I gently bring the dogs in. They're standing behind me to start with, and I explain why we're there, what we do, and I've had people calmly patting the dogs within 30 minutes.
It's that building that safe environment for them too, to know that they're not a threat. And, for those who have had some trauma with dogs, it can be challenging. I know we've had that in the room that I was teaching in, and she was like petrified, shaking and sweating. But after the lady, took the dog, like you just explained, exactly the same, she actually said to me, can I pat the dog? I said, absolutely. And I said, whereabouts would you like to pat the dog? Because sometimes the face is a bit tricky for some little people. And so she just patted and she said, I just want to do the back. So she did the back. And then, my God, love her, she then went over the top of his head, around his head, all the way down his back. And then she cried.
Yes. Beautiful.
Beautiful emotions.
And it would have taken a lot of courage for her to do that, Lisa. And I noticed, when we worked at the Royal Melbourne Hospital, you've got diverse nursing staff, and one of them was afraid of dogs. And over time, over the years that we went there, she would first do a wide arc around the dogs, and then the arc got smaller and smaller. And so she got used to the dogs and realised that they weren't a threat. But I appreciate it. And the other thing is, because they're Labradoodles, they're low shedding. However, no dog is hypoallergenic, because we know it's the protein in the saliva and the urine that's a problem. So allergies are very real, and I'm very aware of that. And so we can do healthy exhale. Thanks, Leanne. We can do students can opt in and have consent and things like that, and it's very interesting. And for example, at the University of Melbourne, and we've worked at many universities, some students are fearful. But what I notice, and I wonder about that little girl that you just described, Lisa, perhaps other students had inadvertently role modelled for her.
They did.
And when I worked in higher ed for 8 years, I had, and this is why it's really, really important to do your pre-work and educate, and maybe use a stuffed dog or a puppet to start with, because I brought a young Flash into my lecture with permission from management, and unfortunately a couple of students thought it was the thing to do to race to the back of the room and scream. And unfortunately, because a couple of students did that, a lot of students did that. And I take that on me. That was my responsibility. I wasn't aware that might happen. And so that never happened again. But it was my responsibility to brief the students and just to say, this is how we respond to a dog or an animal entering the room. And it's a sentient being. So Flush didn't feel too good in that moment. I exercised him afterwards and he was fine. He was fine.
Oh, my goodness. There is so much gold in this conversation. I'm just loving every moment of it. And the fact that we're talking about the well-being of the dog and the people that the dogs might be working with.
Yes. In an ideal world, it's mutually beneficial, and we know people are more pro-social around dogs. What I love about the savouring piece in the wellbeing, and there's so many wellbeing tools we can use, perseverance, grit, growth mindset, gratitude. We can really, with minimal interaction and like energy from the dog, we can extract all the good juice. We can amplify all the good. There are so many life lessons, but the dog doesn't have to be in a room with children all over it, touching it for that to happen. That can be quite a small piece of the session, and it can be really rich in experiencing, but it doesn't have to be exhausting for the dog. And I'm really passionate about that, and I'm really hopeful that we can do more of that in the future.
Roz, I'm just wondering, like, with the role of the dogs, because we know that it can enhance the learning, the behaviour, the regulation, everything, the soothing of the whoever they're with, but particularly with our students. And I'm wondering a little bit more about how the role of the dog can actually support them. I'm thinking in my mind, I've seen a dog who was sitting with a student it was actually the girl was explaining, who was very frightened of dogs. And we just said, do you think you might like to read a book to the dog? Anyway, she did. And she sat with the dog after this, it was like a transformation of her within a very, very short time. And what we noticed is that she ended up leaning in, like lying on the dog a bit as she was reading, so that the dog could see the pictures. The dog was actually almost fast asleep, but it was just that beautiful thing. Could you explain a little bit about, I guess, the role of the dog and what they can play in enhancing those educational experiences?
Sure. And I love to hear stories like that, and I've seen experiences like that. I see here in that the dog is actually very relaxed for it to go to sleep. And my hope is that there is a teacher supervising that, I'm exaggerating, but the dog clearly wasn't pinned to the floor by the student.
I wasn't, definitely.
Okay. And the dog was in a position to get up and move away if it wanted to. But clearly the dog was relaxed and enjoying that, and I love that. And for the student to be able to be in their mind and their prefrontal cortex and able to read and showing empathy and kindness to the dog. So I do some strength spotting in that, showing the dog the pictures. That is beautiful, beautiful. And I've seen students go from, intense, frustration and had just thrown something at another kid to calm face, calm body when they look at the dog. And the dog is very calming for them and helping them to self-regulate. And I would encourage interactions like the reading, and my hope is too, in that moment, she's experiencing what it feels like for her body and brain to feel calm, and she can take that learning outside of the classroom when she goes home and remember, I felt like that in the classroom when I was reading. I might read, whereas before she was dysregulated. And what I like to do is work with children and young people to increase their stamina for learning. And that is very exciting. And I've done that quite a few times. And we even do PBs, like challenges.
I love that.
And we set a timer, and it's working.
That's amazing.
It's so exciting, so exciting.
It's also making me wonder a little bit about that self-awareness, that when they're feeling like that and they're feeling that more often, that they can actually understand that they can regulate themselves.
Yes.
And what that feels like. Yes. And how then it can actually prepare them for their learning or whatever challenge they've got coming up. So it's actually of massive benefit.
Perfect. And you know what else I love? In terms of school belonging, and it's like, you know, we work with a lot of neurodiverse students and who have amazing skills and various intelligences. We enable them to learn from the dog. We talk about VIA, character strengths, and Professor Lee Waters has got some beautiful cards, Strength Stars cards, which we work with.
I've got those.
Yes, I love the purple and I love the images. So we determine, and it's age appropriate, you know, I'm talking about teenagers here. So what are people's top strengths and top five signature strengths? And we strength spot in the dog, in ourselves, in others. I narrate what is going on with the dog, and I think aloud about how we can use those strengths for a forthcoming situation. And I even talk appropriately, and you can do this in coaching, about in the adult world, you know, maybe at a dinner, there might be a person who's a bit tricky, and how I use my savouring to focus on my food and the music and the flowers, rather than what that tricky person might be saying, so that I don't get elevated or heightened. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I wanted to say, which works really well, and this is in the coaching thing, Dr. Jordan Shan is a psychologist in Queensland, and and I'm using a lot of names here because people might want to look up some of this information, which might be to them, and I'm happy to send you more links. Okay, so Professor Pauline Bennett at La Trobe University, so head of psychology, she put me onto Jordan Shan's PhD, which was on dogs as psychological assets, helping us to go from good to great. And I spoke about this at the conference. I feel like we need to know more about these stories. We need to hear more of these stories. And without pumping up my tyres too much, may I say, I use this example at the conference. My husband and I have two sons. Our middle son has just finished his PhD, and last year he led Melbourne Uni basketball to a national victory in the University Basketball League. And what I was saying is, and Flash helped me through 2 master's degrees, and that's meaningful because I'm first in family to go to university. So the reason I share that is because Flash and dogs can help us to do hard things. And this is dogs as psychological assets writ large. And I said clearly, he's not writing my 5,000-word essays, and he's not shooting Joel's 3-pointers. However, he helps us to feel good and function well. And that's a piece that I think we really need to hear over and over and over. And some people think, oh, the dog's annoying, it's attention seeking. I'd flip that. Maybe the dog's connection seeking. Yeah. And maybe if we can just help people, and this is where I'm excited because many people have access to dogs, either their own dogs or through friends and family. And again, it's all about the dog's agency and choice. But if they can interact more intentionally with those dogs, they can get a huge amount of benefit. And my genuine hope is that it is mutually beneficial, only if the dog chooses to engage.
I love how you refer to them as a psychological asset. And as a dog person, I've had dogs in my life ever since I can remember. And they have helped me through some tricky times. Yes. And I love how you refer to it as connection seeking. I can, as you're sort of sharing that, I'm thinking to things that I've seen in my own experience.
Yes, absolutely. And you go, sorry.
I was going to say, you're exactly right when you say that they can help you to do hard things.
Yes.
I guess that's for me. I've got a great experience, the same with you in studying, and it was a terribly hard time. And one thing is when I was presenting and you brought Raph and Flash with you, or Flash and Raph, and I just immediately calmed down and relaxed. That was one.
Yes.
But then the other part was really, really tricky. And our dogs that we have, they just sat with me. They knew. They came in. I didn't know that I was stressed out. They came in and I just calmed immediately and finished my capstone.
Yes.
I didn't go to finish.
Yeah.
I didn't think we're going to do that.
And do you know what was interesting? I actually, with permission, brought Flash in when I delivered my capstone because it was about canine-assisted education and savouring. And I don't think anyone realised, but I was incredibly nervous. And a dear friend brought him in because we were the first presentation. Thank you, Diane Vella-Broderick. We were the first presentation after lunch, so a friend brought him in. I don't think people realised how much I needed him in that moment. Because everyone wanted to come and say hello to Flash, and I'm like, I just need some quiet time. And I will always remember that feeling, and that is why I brought him in for you guys and other cohorts presenting their map, because I know how I felt on that day. Yeah. And I want everyone to be able to, and I know the power even of observation of the dog. You don't even have to be touching it to calm, so that everyone can, if they flip their lid, come back into their body and brain, or maybe their brain, and be able to perform at their best. Yeah. And I'm so excited about that and what that might look like.
Yeah. And just for some context for those who don't know or understand about the MAP, or the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, when we're presenting our capstone, it's the proposal of what we're planning to finish our studies with, our
bring to the world, hopefully.
What we're going to bring to the world. So thank you.
It's huge. It's like
it's huge.
They say it's not a thesis, but it is definitely like that. A PhD proposal, perhaps.
Roz, we would love to learn from you what benefits you have observed in your clients who participate in canine-assisted education and therapy.
In the coaching, and what I love is it's about wellbeing. And as we know, not everyone knows though, it's if we get the wellbeing right, the academic side of things will come. And it's about feeling good and functioning well. So coaching for me is about the strengths-based, goal-focused. For example, when I'm working with Melbourne Indigenous School, the school knows the student and they might suggest some goals. And I'm very sensitive to the student and their agency, so I get them to choose the goal. And that might be, social and emotional learning. They wouldn't call it that, of course, but, it might be about friendships and belonging. So we use their strengths because they are teenagers and we do the via use survey. We use their strengths and apply them to a challenge that they might be facing, and to help them to be even stronger in that space. And the good thing is, because we're at the Richmond Football Club, we might focus on footy and some of the players and role modelling, and we work on what they might like to do in the future. Some of them want to be AFLW players, for example. Visualising, like in year 12, I see you doing this, or tell me about your future best self or best future self, and how can we use your strengths to get there? And at the same time, they're patting Rafa, or, playing fetch with Rafa, who keeps bringing the ball back. and it's that rhythmic activity. Yes. Tom Brunzell talks about that, and looking together at something rather than looking at each other. I want to give you an example. It's a beautiful example. This student from MITS, he's in year 7 and he's quite small. He's a good footballer and he gets teased a little bit for his size. And I said, so how do you go with that? And I didn't have all the language. I called it sledging to start with, and that's kind of more cricket. And he said, oh, you mean something else? I can't remember the word anyway. So I try and stay across the language as much as possible. Anyway, so I said, so what do you do? And he says, I kick a goal. And then I go, and he holds his hand up to his ear so they can clap, And and I said, oh, great, that sounds like a good strategy. And he does tricks with Rafa, and that's wonderful. Fast forward to the end of year 7 and 8 graduation at the MCG, and I see him at a distance, and I'm there with my husband. It's a wonderful evening, and all the students are there. And he sees me. He's with some friends, and he looks at me, and he comes over and he says, "So, where's your singing dog? Because Rafa can sing, right?" Anyway, I said, "Well, he's not here, but my husband is, and he's a basketball coach. Do you want to come and meet him?" So we walk over to the table, and this kid, wonderful human being, looks him in the eye, holds out his hand to shake his hand, and they have a little banter about basketball. And I'm like, it just filled my heart.
Oh.
It really filled my heart with joy, because you know what? This kid's having fun. He's developing pro-social skills. He initiated the handshake. He's enjoyed the banter with my husband, a man who he didn't know. And it just, all that work with Rafa and using the young person's playfulness and humour, and it's just amplifying all that and creating a safe environment and healthy attachment and relationships. It just thrills me that we can do.
That's so beautiful.
Especially the coaching part to that with the dogs just really does help to amplify it and provide him an opportunity to develop those skills, to transfer into his everyday life.
Yes.
So amazing benefits. Wonderful.
And really solidifies that the evidence behind coaching practices too.
Yeah. Roz, this is just such a great conversation, but I'm just actually wondering, when it comes to maintaining the wellbeing of the dogs and clients that you're working with, are there any additional challenges or ethical considerations that we would probably really need to address in the practice of canine-assisted therapy, education and coaching?
Thanks so much, Lisa. This is really a very, very important question. There are so many things to consider, and here's just some of them. In my experience, it's important to look at things like, has the dog been exercised, rested, fed, watered, toileted prior to the session? The capacity and temperament of the dog, training of the dog and the human, professional qualifications and experience of the handler. Believe it or not, there are a lot of dogs going into schools that are untrained. A dog can be really relaxed at home, but a school is a very different, noisy environment, and we've really got to look after the dog. And I will say, there are many people who can't read dog body language, and they can't identify when the dog is stressed, and that is a problem. Okay, and it's we can change that with education. That's good. The environment, cleanliness, safety, absence of other dogs, noise levels, students, are they calm and kind or noisy and violent or anything in between? Have they been educated about dog body language? Do they understand why the dog's there? Even people who are afraid of dogs, with the appropriate sensitive education, they can have a positive experience with a trained therapy dog or canine-assisted education dog, or as I like to call it, my wellbeing education dogs. How's that for another term? Yeah. Does the child
coin that one? You should coin that one.
We should, and there are wellbeing dogs out there. I like to say I've been doing this a long time, and I might have been one of the first. Not that I'm competitive in any way.
Yes, you are.
Maybe I am. Okay. So, and I that's with my coaching hat on and my basketball family. And I will just add playfully, my husband for years said to the boys, why play D grade when you can play A grade? And I'm like, yep, I'm up there. I'm with that. I'm running with that. Okay. Can't claim it as my own, but there you go. Okay. So does the child or young person have allergies? Is the dog low allergy? Have the correct permissions and consent been given for the child, young person, to participate? Does the child have an opportunity to have a short walk or does the dog have an opportunity to have a short walk or debrief after the session, after each session? So that's not cumulative, one session after another after another. Okay, because the dog needs to exercise. It's like Bessel van der Kolk would say, shake off any stress, And finally, what advice? Oh, okay. So I guess they're just some of the many questions and considerations. So it really is a great question. And if people want to know more, I encourage them to have a look at Animal Therapies Limited website and also read the 2024 Routledge text, Dogs in Schools. And I know you've got the link for that, which you're going to put in the show notes. So
and they do. They have great things to share, especially about getting looking at the compassion and the well-being of the dogs. Often they think that we're just bringing the dogs in for the well-being of the students, but in actual fact, it's everyone that is belonging in that space, and we need to have the well-being of everybody.
Yeah. And another good reason for that is you're going to have longevity in the dog. You're going to have happy stories around the dog. Yeah. And no one wants a story of a distressed dog or a shut down dog or an obese dog that can't move and that's not enjoying its work.
Yeah, correct.
Roz, in addition to these challenges and ethical considerations, what advice would you give to educational settings that might be considering canine-assisted therapy, education and coaching? And for that matter, would we even be considering it in the workplace as well?
Really good question. Definitely, you could consider it in the workplace as well. I would recommend, again, have a look at the book Dogs in Schools, which has been written by Dr. Helen Lewis and another gentleman, Griggs, whose name escapes me, but you'll see it on the link. Canine-assisted therapy, education coaching, needs to be customised to each educational setting or work setting. Professional staff in these settings are best placed to understand the students' needs and those of the school community or work community. And I'd be happy for people to reach out to me for professional canine-assisted education and coaching support. I would encourage them to take the time to do high-quality research. I'm a member of Animal Assisted Therapies. In fact, as you know, I spoke at the conference, and it was all about dog wellbeing. I educate and coach a range of teachers and school leaders around Australia, and we can do that online. In fact, I had a coaching session with a school psychologist in Queensland very recently. Yeah, and without getting too intense, but she actually said to me, and this is canine-assisted therapy, absolutely, she said, a lot of the students say to me, I am alive because of my dog. And that really makes me feel heartened, but also kind of breaks my heart just a little bit, because this is life-saving work. It's not just life-changing work, but it's only because I've been able to do the advanced animal therapy training and all my Masters of Education, Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, mental health first aid, that I can work in this space, and it's a lot of fun, but it's really quite serious as well. And another thing I hope is that we can create communities where if a kid says something like that, we say, we get it. You're a mammal, the dog's a mammal, the dog's reading your facial expressions, the dog's reading your body language, and the 0.05 or maybe more frequently, if my husband and I raise voices, the dogs are absolutely there, maybe even standing between us, looking at us, and if that is a very big reality check. Or if I'm racing around the house, Flash will stop and just look at me, and I might be racing around the house in a good, happy energy kind of way, but the dog just looks at me and I'm like, yeah, maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need to take a break. So just so many examples of how the dog's giving us immediate biofeedback to say, hey, just do a check-in. Just do a check-in. Yeah. So we can help Healthy Exhale. We can help people understand why dogs are so important. We know this stuff, but not everyone knows this stuff.
And have those psychological assets, and that they can help us to do hard things.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Love it. I want to keep chatting and chatting and chatting. As we get towards the culmination of, I guess, our conversation, I'm just wondering, do you have a book or a favourite book, podcast, or a TED Talk that you think would be valuable for our listeners today that you might like to share?
Well, I was lucky enough to meet Dr. Matthew Iasello, if I've said his name correctly, at the IPA, International Postpsych Association World Congress in Vancouver last year. He was standing with Jackie Francis and Lisa Baker, awesome human beings. And he has a podcast called Researching Happy, which is amazing. Go you, Matthew. So I am thrilled to recommend that. And I love his zest, and I love his courage. He's a real mover and shaker in this space. Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that Matthew's a South Australian.
Yes.
here at the Adelaide Samory Centre. So thank you. And we'll be sure to share that in the notes.
Yeah. Lovely.
Roz, we always ask our guests to share one of their favourite wellbeing practices that we might be able to share forward for our listeners to add to their wellbeing toolkits. Do you have one that you would like to share with us today?
Cool. Well, I, like a lot of people, I'm a great food lover. And coming from the wine industry, I use the practice of savouring, and I'll just explain, and I don't talk to under 18s about alcohol, clearly. Okay. I want to explain with champagne and the world of wine. I think about champagne, and I used to talk about, look at the appearance, the aroma, the flavour, the texture, the ballet of the bubbles as it rises in the glass. Oh. Okay, so, and the whole world of the experience opened up to me rather than just a wet beverage, okay? And I use that in my life with food, with the dogs, with all sorts of things. And what I love about savouring is it's temporal. I'm enjoying talking to you right now. I enjoyed the Melbourne coffee I had this morning. I'm looking forward to lunch because I love food. Okay, so savouring really amplifies my pleasurable emotions, and I teach it a lot, and in my experience it's more accessible and it's safer, particularly for anyone who has experienced trauma. It's safer to take a child or young person to a savouring practice than a mindfulness practice, and some of the research bears this out. Smiling Minds, different people have said that. So savouring for me can be a game changer.
Absolutely. I think that's a really wonderful one for everyone to put into their practice, whatever that might look like. I know for me, definitely, like you explained with the champagne, for me it's nature and music. So I have my own music stash, I'd call it, or a little collection of them, that if I feel like I need to savour something for whatever the purpose is, I go straight to that. And I also have photos of all the most beautiful places that I've been. So if I'm missing something or I need something or I need to get into nature, that's where I go to too. So I have those saving moments. Oh, Roz, as we finally come to the end, and I don't want to say the end because it's got to never be the end with you. If people want to connect with you and learn more about the wonderful work that you're doing, where's the best place for them to find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, so Roz Rimes, or they can find me on Live with Zest, so that's LIVE with Zest, ZEST, Facebook. And they can find me on Instagram as well under Live with Zest. Yeah.
Fantastic. And for those who don't know Roz like we do, Zest is her number one character strengths, VIA character strengths, and you live it so well. That smile of yours is just always bubbling up like champagne.
Roz, thank you so much for the time you have spent with us today to help us understand so much more around canine-assisted therapy, education and coaching. We have really learned a great deal, and I'm sure our listeners will be really excited to explore this more. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leanne and Lisa. Thank you.
It's such a wonderful conversation with you today. Loved it. Love Roz, don't you? Every time I talk with her, my bucket is full, and I can go into today with just so much joy.
Roz is just such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to canine-assisted therapy, education and coaching. She really is one of the leaders in that field, if not the leader.
I would have to say almost the leader. She's so passionate about the amazing dogs that do transformational work, and everyone. And I think that's so important. And her ability to amplify that in all sorts of contexts is incredible. She's
absolutely.
She's so natural at it.
And it's not just Flash and Rafa, it's Flash, Rafa and Lucille.
I love meeting her just before. I wish other people could see her, but it was a beautiful puppet that she had to take in for other sorts of reasons, and it's a really good way of, for first meeting dogs and all sorts of things. Do you know, a couple of the takeaways that I had, Leanne, there were so many of them.
Me too.
But I really like, and I know you raised this as well, that psychological assets, that the dogs are psychological assets. And I hadn't thought about that before. I know that they are amazing, but to call them an asset, it really does make it much more amplified. And the other part was that they can really help us with hard things. Yeah. That for me was a real standout for some of the people that I've seen working with dogs.
Yeah, and I loved in the work that she does, she uses that PERMA approach. It's a great way to help people go from what she said was good to great. I think the connection made in that coaching context of helping the client find their future best self, and having the dog help them to do that in the process is fantastic, is incredible. A few years ago, I would not have thought that a dog could make, or any animal for that matter, could make a difference in wellbeing approaches for people. So it's just amazing the work and the science behind all of this.
I guess they really do ground you in your heightened, and they have the ability it's such a natural thing that they do, to make you calm and self-regulated, become a bit more aware of how you're feeling, and then understanding, where you need to be, especially for, she mentioned in education as well, being ready for learning. What does that look like? Is my body ready? Is my mind ready? Am I ready? And I loved also her savouring approach. She's such an important thing. And I guess that's that connection between the dogs and whoever they're working with. And really savouring that feeling. Such a good conversation. And the other one I wanted to just quickly add is the importance of, there have been dogs in schools before, in workplaces before, but they're now becoming more aware of the wellbeing for the dogs and the ethical components to that, to make sure that the relationship in those connections and the belonging is actually benefiting everyone. It's not just benefiting the human, it's actually a humane way of also supporting the dogs.
I totally agree. And I think we've just confirmed that dogs really are man's best friend.
Absolutely. Well, with that, let's go off, and I'm going to go pat my dogs right now.
Okay, enjoy. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
And thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful to our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about, and we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. To continue the conversation and see what we're up to, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Just search for Imperfect Us. Bye for now.